General Bipin Rawat.
Hello and welcome to India Today. I'm Pramod Madhav reporting from Kateri in Coonoor. Behind me you could see the crash site, and in the next half hour we'll bring you all the latest updates regarding the chopper crash and also the tributes pouring in for General Rawat and all other army personnel who died in the crash. India Today has accessed the last footage of the Mi-17V5 ill-fated helicopter which crashed, killing General Bipin Rawat, and in this report we'll try and decode what led to this crash.
The frightful last moments of the ill-fated chopper carrying Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat, wife Madhulika and 12 defence personnel. Caught on camera by a group of unsuspecting youngsters on ground in the Nilgiris mountains. The chopper can be seen and heard roaring overhead, with no apparent wobble and maintaining what looks like a steady course, but dangerously close to the foliage on the ground, navigating through foggy and misty skies, with apparent bad weather and low cloud cover. The youngsters can be seen stopping on the path, wondering what's going on. The video then catches a loud booming explosion sound in the background as the chopper, now not on camera, crashes into the terrain. Taken aback, the group of young residents are seen exclaiming, "Has it crashed?" The video then abruptly stops, but not before giving some important insight into what exactly went wrong seconds before the fateful mishap. Was it the bad, blinding, misty weather, which often grips these parts of Nilgiris at this time of the season?
The helicopter was definitely flying low because this area, you could see that the entire back area is completely covered in mist. Around 11 o'clock, this whole spot will be covered by mist. And generally, any kind of helicopter sortie that starts from Sulur and coming to Wellington base, they actually, from that crash point, either take a left or a right. On the left side, there is a hill that is almost twice the size of this one, which is completely covered by mist right now. And that's the only way they can go, and on the right side. But generally, they prefer the left side. And as we speak, you could see the mist is setting in over there. And this is the most kind of unfortunate part.
Did the weather cause cockpit disorientation? Or was it some sudden technical snag? The black box retrieved from the wreckage holds important clues. Bureau Report, India Today.
It was a Mi-17V5 helicopter that crashed with the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, and 13 others on board. It has been with the Indian Air Force since 2012, and the Mi-17s were acquired by India to strengthen its chopper fleet for humanitarian missions, disaster relief missions, and transport operations.
Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat, his wife Madhulika Rawat, and 11 others lose their lives as an Indian Air Force Mi-17V5 helicopter crashes in Coonoor. Only Group Captain Varun Singh survived the crash. Sources tell India Today, Wing Commander Prithvi Singh Chauhan was flying the advanced military transport chopper. He was commanding officer of the 109 helicopter unit. Mi-17V5 choppers joined the Indian Air Force fleet in February 2012, after India expanded its 2008 contract with Russia for strengthening its chopper operations. The Indian Air Force currently has over 200 Mi-17V5 helicopters in service. Manufactured by Russian company Kazan, the advanced helicopter comes with a weather radar and latest generation night vision devices, which makes it fit for high-altitude operations. It can carry a maximum weight of 13,000 kilos with an additional payload weight of 4,000 kilos. The helicopter is equipped with self-defense system against heat-seeker missiles and heavily armored cockpit. The self-sealed fuel tanks are filled with foam, polyurethane and are protected against explosions. It is the most technically advanced helicopter of Mi-8 family of helicopters and is fitted with advanced TV3 117VM engines. The military transport helicopter has been involved in crashes earlier too. In 2017, 7 people died as a Mi-17V5 chopper crashed near Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh. 4 years earlier in 2013, 20 people died in a chopper crash in Uttarakhand during a rescue mission during flash floods. Bureau Report, India Today.
CDS General Bipin Rawat, his wife Madhulika Rawat and 11 others were on board Indian Air Force chopper that crashed in Coonoor of Tamil Nadu. In this report, we tell you about all other personnel who died in the crash.
उस हेलीकॉप्टर में सवार कुल 14 लोगों में से 13 लोगों की मृत्यु हो गई। आर्म्ड फोर्सेस के अन्य 9 लोग शामिल हैं। उनके नाम हैं विंग कमांडर पृथ्वी सिंह चौहान, स्क्वाड्रन लीडर कुलदीप सिंह, जूनियर वारंट ऑफिसर राणा प्रताप दास, जूनियर वारंट ऑफिसर अरक्कल प्रदीप, हरविंदर सतपाल राय, नायक गुरुसेवक सिंह, नायक जितेंद्र कुमार, लांस नायक विवेक कुमार, लांस नायक बी साई तेजा।
From the topmost military officer to armed forces jawans, India mourns the deaths in the Nilgiris chopper crash. A decorated soldier, caring husband and doting father, brightest and bravest of the officers, words that describe Brigadier Lakhbinder Singh Liddar, military advisor to Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat. The brigadier is survived by his wife Geetika, a school teacher, and a 16-year-old daughter. Lieutenant Colonel Harjinder Singh belonged to the 11 Gorkha Rifles, the same regiment as General Bipin Rawat. His missions included one at the Siachen Glacier and another on a UN peacekeeping mission. Wing Commander Prithvi Singh Chauhan was the pilot flying the helicopter that crashed. The 42-year-old from Agra was posted at the Indian Air Force station in Sulur, where he was commanding officer of the 109 helicopter unit. Wing Commander Chauhan is survived by his wife Kamini, a 12-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son. Squadron leader Kuldeep Singh was the co-pilot of the Mi-17 that crashed. His father is a former Navy officer. His family currently lives in Jaipur. Kuldeep Singh had gotten married just 2 years ago. Rana Pratap Das was a junior warrant officer and a native of Talcher in Angul district of Odisha. Rana had completed 12 years in service and was posted in Delhi, where he lived with his wife and son. Arakkal Pradeep, a junior warrant officer, joined the Air Force in 2002 as a weapon fitter and was later selected as part of the air crew. A veteran of anti-Naxal operations in Chhattisgarh and flood rescue missions in Uttarakhand and Kerala, Pradeep was posted at the Sulur Air Force Station. He is survived by his wife and 2 children. Havildar Satpal Rai was the personal security officer of General Bipin Rawat. He was from Darjeeling. Naik Gursevak Singh was a member of Bipin Rawat's security squad. A resident of Punjab's Taran Taran, Gursevak was posted in the 9 Para Special Forces unit of the army. Lance Naik Vivek Kumar was the principal staff officer of General Bipin Rawat from Himachal's Kangra. Vivek was in the J&K Rifles and also served in a para-commando unit, engaged in VIP security. Married only last year, he is survived by his wife and a 6-month-old son. Lance Naik B. Sai Teja was a personal security officer of General Rawat, a prestigious posting that he got just 7 months ago. From Andhra's Chittoor, Teja had joined the Indian Army in 2012. He is survived by his parents, wife and 2 children, a 3-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. The family says Lance Naik Sai Teja last spoke to his wife on Wednesday, moments before boarding the helicopter with Chief of Defence Staff Rawat. Naik Jitendra Kumar was from Dhamanda village in Madhya Pradesh. He had completed 8 years in the army and is survived by his wife, a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. These men lost their lives in the line of duty, but will continue to live in the collective memory of a grateful and grieving nation. Bureau Report, India Today.
India's first Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, has served with the armed forces for more than 4 decades. He was the man behind several bold moves by the armed forces against terrorism and its supporters across the border. Here is a report on what his legacy means to the armed forces.
September 29th, 2016. India climbs up the escalation ladder in the war on terror. The special forces of the Indian Army went across the line of control deep into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir in the early hours and launched an attack on terrorist launch pads. The surgical strike in response to the terror strike in Uri stunned the world. It began a new chapter in India's security paradigm. And among the few people instrumental in the mission was General Bipin Rawat, then the Deputy Army Chief. Since then, General Rawat has made no bones about the fact that the Indian Army can go to any extent in protecting the borders.
हमारी जो सेना है, हम अमन और शांति चाहते हैं, लेकिन अमन और शांति का मकसद ये नहीं है कि हम कमजोर हैं। अगर जरूरत आई तो हम किसी भी तरह से ताकत इस्तेमाल करने में पीछे नहीं हटेंगे।
The surgical strikes laid the foundation for another retaliation 3 years later. The Indian Air Force flew deep inside Pakistani territory to bomb Jaish-e-Mohammed terror camps in Balakot. General Bipin Rawat, then the Chief of Army Staff, had his forces on high alert, ready from any blowback by the enemy. The Balakot bombing in retaliation to the Pulwama terror attack that killed 40 CRPF personnel jolted Pakistan and sent out clear message to the world. India will not tolerate terror. Under the leadership of General Rawat, the Indian Army has taken some of the most stringent steps against Pakistan. As the Army Chief, General Rawat stood up to Chinese PLA in Doklam Plateau on the India-Bhutan-China tri-junction in 2017. The stare down lasted 73 days and ended with the Chinese withdrawing. General Rawat was aware of the multiple threats India faces on the border and warned that India must be ready for a two-front war in a worst-case scenario.
तीनों सर्विसेज जो हैं, उसका 1+1+1 का जो जोड़ आता है, उसको 3 नहीं बनाना है, उसको 5 या 7 बनाना है. तो you have to achieve more through synergy and integration. ये मकसद है जो CDS को जिस तरह से टास्क दिया गया है.
The 26th Army Chief played a key role in shaping the army in other matters too. He was fundamental in restructuring the army, cutting administrative flab, reducing duplicity, and increasing combat potential. The Government of India amended the army rules to extend the age of superannuation from 62 years to 65 years, paving the way for General Bipin Rawat's appointment as India's first Chief of Defence Staff. As the CDS, General Rawat ensured better coordination between the Army, Navy and Air Force. General Bipin Rawat is an illustrious career, a legacy that is immortal and indelible. Bureau Report, India Today.
General Bipin Rawat was a soldier on a mission. He was appointed as the country's first Chief of Defence Staff in 2019. The 60-year-old had a reputation of being a tough soldier and an inspiring commander. India Today joins the entire nation in bidding farewell to the general.
Vast experience in high-altitude warfare. An expert in counter-insurgency operations. He dedicated 43 years of his life to his motherland. General Bipin Rawat was among India's tallest defence chiefs. An alumnus of the National Defence Academy and the Indian Military Academy, General Rawat was commissioned into the 5th Battalion of 11 Gorkha Rifles of the Indian Army in December 1978. But General Rawat learnt his first lessons in defending his country much earlier, from none other than his father, Lieutenant General Lakshman Singh Rawat, who had served in the same unit, 11 Gorkha Rifles. During the 4-decade-long service, General Bipin Rawat held multiple positions. General Rawat was also part of a United Nations peacekeeping force. His tenure as Deputy Chief of Army saw the Indian Army launch surgical strikes on terror launch pads deep inside the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
These surgical strikes were a message that we had communicated, and that if required, and if the adversary does not behave, then if we have to continue with these kind of activities and events, we will continue. But there are other ways of doing these things also. It did not take the same form.
General Rawat was the 4th officer from the Gorkha Rifles to become the Chief of Army Staff on 31st December 2016. 3 years later, in 2019, General Bipin Rawat was appointed as India's first Chief of Defence Staff. The post, which was recommended after the Kargil War for better coordination between the Army, Navy and Air Force.
तीनों सर्विसेज जो हैं, उसका 1+1+1 का जो जोड़ आता है, उसको 3 नहीं बनाना है, उसको 5 या 7 बनाना है. तो you have to achieve more through synergy and integration. ये मकसद है जो CDS को जिस तरह से टास्क दिया गया है.
During his service, General Rawat has been decorated with multiple medals for his grit and valor. It included the Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Uttam Yudh Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Vishisht Seva Medal and Sena Medal. General Bipin Rawat's death comes as a huge blow to India and the armed forces.
General Bipin Rawat was known as a strong-headed army man who made bold statements. From calling Pakistan's hypocrisy in supporting terrorism to China's territorial aggression, General called a spade a spade. Here are a few strong statements made by General Bipin Rawat.
A tall leader, a counter-insurgency expert and a fiery personality. Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Singh Rawat never minced words when it came to India's hostile neighbours. From the day he took over as the Chief of Army, General Rawat made it known India was capable of countering any threat.
हमारी जो सेना है, हम अमन और शांति चाहते हैं, लेकिन अमन और शांति का मकसद ये नहीं है कि हम कमजोर हैं. हम हर तरफ से काबिल हैं, ताकतवर हैं और अगर जरूरत आई तो हम किसी भी तरह से ताकत इस्तेमाल करने में पीछे नहीं हटेंगे.
Taking over as the Chief of Army Staff at a time when Chinese incursions were becoming more frequent, General Rawat did not hold back from voicing the Indian Army's decades-old demand for new weaponry.
People who are deeply committed into the conduct of counter-proxy, counter-terrorism, counter-insurgencies are empowered and enabled. The soldier on the ground, the person with the boots on the ground, has to be provided weapons that give him the lethality to take action.
The most testing time for General Rawat was Doklam standoff at India's tri-junction border with Bhutan and China.
Our troops on the border should not feel that it cannot happen again or it cannot happen in another sector again. So what I was trying to say is that it is always better to remain prepared and alert than think that these things will not happen. So my message to my people is that remain prepared, it can happen again.
The incident solidified General Rawat's belief that China and not Pakistan was India's biggest security threat in the region, something he reiterated during his stint as India's first Chief of Defence Staff.
We have our border management protocols which have been signed between us and China right from 1993 onwards, and we have modified the protocols continuously. But of late we have been seeing some aggressive actions by the Chinese, but we are capable of handling these in the best suitable way. We have our tri-services, that is the Army, Navy and Air Force, capable of dealing with our threats along our frontiers.
General Rawat called a spade when it came to Pakistan's duplicity on terror.
These surgical strikes were a message that we had communicated, and that if required and if the adversary does not behave, then if we have to continue with these kind of activities and events, we will continue. But there are other ways of doing these things also. It did not take the same form.
He also proclaimed that the influx of Bangladeshi migration was not total arbitrary, but a partial result of Pakistan's proxy warfare.
A planned immigration that is taking place because of our western neighbor. They will always try and ensure that this area is taken over through playing the proxy dimension of warfare. You don't have to confront a stronger nation through conventional operations. So you play a proxy game.
A general who spoke his mind. General Rawat quoted some controversies, but gave the forces a new direction.
That's it from me for this special broadcast. Stay tuned to India Today as I bring you more updates about the investigation and much more.